and the peloton are cracking under the stress because Frederic Fino, who yesterday pulled on the leader jersey in the King of the Mountains, has been left behind on this climb here of the Côte de Lausanne, and Fassa Bortolo are very, very worried about this. Jeslan O'Grady and Brusegin of Fassa Bortolo was the man that cleaned up the 1 point. Wasn't interested in that. He just wants to now bring this race back together for the top sprinter, Alessandro Patacchi. These are the two leaders now, and they are scurrying to the finish like rabbits. Will they make it, Paul? I mean, when commentators say they will, they won't.
Well, I'd like them to, but I have a feeling it's going to get right back in the last few kilometers, and the main field, if they keep the pressure up that they've got right now, they can still catch them. I'd like to see these two men survive. It's good to see a breakaway get off the front, but on occasions like this, the sprinters really do want to have their glory. In fact, it looks as if there's a change at the front end of the main field. There's still there's a problem here.
So 20 kilometers to go now. The yellow flag is out. Oh no, it's just it's just a roundabout. I thought they were being brought to a stop there. The roundabout was lost in the middle of the peloton. All safely round. Thank heavens for the gendarmes with his yellow warning flags as the riders go under that banner. Yes, just to complete Paul's thinking, there is a change at the front now, because it looks today, Paul, as though the sprinters have had a little chat, which is okay, we'll sprint it out of the finish, but we will put men up to do the chase.
But they seem to be losing their impetus. The team of Alessandro Patacchi, Fassa Bortolo, they've disappeared from the front end of the main field. There are one or two teams from the French teams, one or two members of the French teams who've managed to send men up to the front, but they seem to be losing a fair amount of impetus right now. Georgie Hincapie, the big rider in the blue jersey from US Postal, they're very close to the front, and that would indicate that Lance Armstrong is riding himself into the top 10 on the open road for the moment, always riding out of difficulty, always out of danger. Tomorrow he gets a chance to play in the mountains for the first time. O'Grady on the attack at kilometer number 30 is in a very low aerodynamic position. You see how he's got his hands in the front of the handlebars there. It's to try and keep him as aerodynamic as possible, but the gap is still coming down. 2 minutes 41. Jeslan is weakening right now, Phil. He's not going to be able to contribute too much to the success of this breakaway, but O'Grady has not been able to get rid of him.
Yes, but I honestly think now O'Grady's going to say to this young man, okay, you're not going to win the stage if we get down there. That's for me, and if you agree, then you can stay with me and you'll get second. And for a kid who's 23 in his first Tour de France, he'll say yes, and I'll give you what help I can, maybe, if that's the way it is. 17 kilometers to go, a little more than 10 miles, just on about 25 minutes of racing today, maybe slightly less than that now, because it's a very fast approach to Lyon. Remember, the first of the cities on the Tour of 1903. We go to them all this year. There's 6 of them, including Paris. 72 kilometers an hour. That is enormous at the moment. 45, 46 miles an hour. Boy, they must be picking up a very nice breeze as well.
They're descending slightly into the outskirts of Lyon from the summit of the Côte de Lausanne, and they're picking up this cross tailwind which pushes them down the Rhone Valley. 70 kilometers an hour. The two guys at the front will only be averaging inside of 50 kilometers an hour, which means they can wipe away a huge advantage over the last few kilometers. Moving to the front now, another team getting interested in the pacemaking on the front end of the peloton. This is the Rabobank team, thinking about Oscar Freire, who's always been there and thereabouts, although yesterday he was badly placed and only crossed the line in 12th place.
He's not been impressive yet, Oscar Freire, but he can change. But just look at the faces of these fellas. They know that they've allowed this breakaway to run too far, and they must be kicking themselves now, because they know the quality of Stuart O'Grady, and they think, well, heck, we're riding at nearly 75 kilometers an hour. That guy should be in the Tour de France. And these fellas are chasing us now. That's a sprint for around 100 meters, and he's had enough. These guys have been in the lead for about 170, 180 kilometers, and he couldn't stay with them for 100 meters.
Just goes to show you the difference. These guys have been riding at this pace for 4 hours right now. They've been in the saddle on their own, sharing the pacemaking at the front of the bike race, and it looks as if Jeslan has recovered just a little bit, because he is contributing whenever he can to the pacemaking.
15.
These guys are ticking away at the kilometers right now. 15 kilometers to go. It's still 2.5 minutes advantage. It's going to be very close.
Well, we're all going to be on the edge of our seats. Never mind Leslie O'Grady, Stuart's sister, in Adelaide, Australia. 2 minutes 20, they're saying there, because I'll tell you what, these two have got a chance. O'Grady will just get on with the job now. If the youngster can come through, he'll take it, he'll accept it. If he senses he can't pass him and give enough impetus to the chase, he'll just say, stay behind, keep out the way, and let me get on with my job. But at the moment, hats off to Anthony Jeslan, because here he is willing to work, living the moment of his life in his first Tour de France.
The main field getting themselves organised right now. Another team moving to the front. You can see the pink jerseys of Eric Zabel coming to the front now. This is Guerini, who's decided to do some pacemaking. Axel Merckx, the tall figure of the long Belgian rider, who this year almost took Liège-Bastogne-Liège. A fantastic attack by him in the final kilometres, only being wiped out by a man whose name just happens to be Lance Armstrong. These guys, I think right now, Phil, are having panic on board because they thought they had got it all sorted out, but they've had such a long, hard chase to try and pull this all back together.
Andy Fleekinger, you see, he just flicks his arm there, calls through the next man to take up the pacemaking. That's the signal. Come and give us a hand, get this tempo going. They must be absolutely amazed that the two riders up front after this long breakaway are doing this sort of a speed ahead of them as they continue now. And Guerini coming through for Telecom. All of the teams with sprinters are now sending men to the front. Guerini setting the pace now. The man who was once knocked off his bike a kilometre from the win at the top of Alpe d'Huez by Eric the photographer. But he got up and he won, and Eric apologised. That's the way the Tour de France is. On our end, let's take a break. And welcome back. Well, today the Tour de France on the road to Lyon is poised for an incredible finish. The two leaders who've been out front since the 30th kilometre, Stuart O'Grady, Anthony Jeslan, lead now by 1 minute and 40 seconds. Looking here, the Telecom team now launching the attack. They must wonder how those two riders are maintaining such a high speed, having been out front for so long. A massive, massive crowd today, the biggest of the Tour, as they course through the suburbs now of Lyon.
These guys are really pulling something special out in the main field this afternoon. It is really hurting today as these two riders go inside of 10 kilometres to go. They still have 1.5 minutes advantage. It is so close. Normally the main field can wipe away a minute with great ease. The team car coming up alongside here just to give a last few words of encouragement to tell these guys to keep going. There's still the chance that they can survive, but look at the length of the main field. A little bit of a quack in the middle there. That's what the Belgians call it when everybody moves across the road like that. Ulrich comfortably in the middle, calm and collected, waiting for the first rendezvous with the mountains and the first time that we can see whether or not this year he will be a challenger to Lance Armstrong.
And we know now too that is not the complete field in the Tour de France today. A number of riders have been shed on what has been a vicious race by the sprinters. Their last chance before the weekend is upon them. Some of them may not come out the other side of the Alps. They may be just simply too hard, those climbs. So they know now they want this race together for the sprint finish. Pataki has had men up there working hard. He's pulled them off. He's made other sprinters put their men up to work hard. And although they've worked hard indeed, these two are defying capture. 1 minute and 32 seconds now, and we are 9 kilometres to go. Oops, 1:26 is the latest check coming at us. They're gaining. Is it quick enough?
The two guys at the front have done an unbelievable ride here this afternoon, and they've still got some energy left in their bodies there as they go inside of 10 kilometres to go. It is going to be so very close for the sprinters. I think they will just do it, but I've got my fingers crossed for the two attackers, because it is so good to see men attacking a race so far from the finish and coming up with the win. But they don't care whether they finish half a minute or a quarter of a minute in front of the main field. All they want to do is just survive. These little corners are a great advantage for the men in the breakaway, but the majority of this last 10 kilometres, Phil, is a big straight long line.
Well, the last 2 kilometres now with 1 minute and 22 seconds the gap. They will see them straight up the home straight, and by the time to get there, if they get there in the lead, they'll be almost able to pin them back just on the straight. But let's hope that's not the case as we now start to drop through the underpasses here. They are inside 8 to go.
They are also inside the streets of Lyon right now, and that is going to make it very difficult to stop the onslaught of the main field. They need half a dozen more corners to try and conserve a bit of their advantage. A small group of riders like the two-man breakaway can get around the corners and the bends a lot better than the main field. Still great work on the front being done by Andy Flickinger. He's the rider there, the big tall rider, tallest bike rider in the Tour de France, by the way, at 1.93 m. Flicking his arm there, wanting somebody else to come over and set the pacemaking. This has been a flat stage today, Phil, but it has been a very hard stage the day before the mountains.
30 kilometres out from the start, facing 200 kilometres alone in the lead. These two riders, they attacked. They are now in the lead for 193 kilometres. They are 7 from the line. They don't deserve to lose, but it's going to be touch and go.
It will be so close at the finish as to whether or not they can survive or not. O'Grady coming forward again. He's looking at his computer on his bar.
There's a crash
at the back. Looks as if one or two riders have gone down in the corner there. The green jersey, I think, is Robbie McEwen.
Zabel is down. Zabel is down. Now here we can see it again here as they make this right-hand corner. And a touch of wheels, a massive part that's disrupted the field now. And Zabel is one of the fallers. Now that is going to disrupt the chase here. Paul was just saying about the bends there. And I think McEwen, they're saying, is also down. We need to see. Certainly they would have been riding close together. But Zabel is out of the sprint today. His bike not working.
He's out of the match for this afternoon, and that was a very dramatic crash. Robbie McEwen definitely went down in that crash. We saw the green jersey. He got himself up very quickly, but at this speed, he's going to have a very hard time getting back into the peloton. But this kind of chaos so close from the finish can actually help the attackers right now, because it'll take Team Telecom and, of course, Team Lotto out of the pacemaking at the front end of the field.
The leaders course down the banks of the beautiful Rhone River now as we're into the heart of Lyon. 6 kilometres to go. They're looking for the 5-kilometre banner. That will leave them 3 miles out. The peloton split at the moment. Zabel is behind. Robbie McEwen is chasing. This is going to cause a disorganised chase.
A very disorganised chase. You've taken 2 teams out of the pacemaking at the front end of the main field. There is still, though, Fassa Bortolo of Alessandro Patacchi to organise the pace on the front end. And, of course, the Team AG2R of Jan Kirsipou. Official time kept coming right now into my ears is 55 seconds. It is so close. We're looking for the 5-kilometre to go banner.
55 seconds. All of the riders who fell have started chasing, but they won't get back to the peloton at these sort of speeds, I don't think. It might be the day for Oscar Freire. This is one of his Rabobank teammates setting the pace. Now it's the turn of the AG2R pacemakers for Jan Kirsipou. And behind we've got Damien Nazon's team also setting the pace, but they're trying at the moment to disrupt the chase because they've got Anthony Geslan in the lead.
The green and white jersey there of the Crédit Agricole rider. He was hoping just to slow down the pacemaking at the front end of the main field. O'Grady comes up again. It is so close here right now. It's 50 seconds these two riders have over the main field. Don't look at the board there, Stewie. Just get down and concentrate on the job at hand.
He knows they're coming.
Survive.
He knows they're coming now. He's so experienced, but he won't give up until they pull him back to them. There at the head is the 5-kilometre to go banner. In English money, that's 3 miles. In everybody's money, it's a heck of a long way when the peloton of the Tour de France is only 45 seconds behind.
5 kilometres of racing at this speed, at this level of the sport, is going to take these riders 7 minutes. They've got 50 seconds advantage to hold for 7 minutes of racing. The main field are really pulling it up. It's coming down again, even more. 45 seconds. You see the red car charging through there. That was the car of the race referee. He wants to keep the gap now between the 2 leaders and the main field completely devoid of action, completely devoid of vehicles. Once we get into the long finishing straight right now, the main field will be able to see these men in front. There's a slowing down in the main field right now. Disorganisation has come because of that crash. Not everyone has got the power still to do it. There's the 5-kilometre banner.
They're that close, and Fassa Bortolo are setting the pace, albeit a little bit ahead of the rest of the race at the moment. Now, And they're saying on the radio it is now down to 35 seconds. Our computer can't keep up with it now. It's changing so quickly. The leaders, though, are just approaching 4 kilometres. They will turn into this horrible long straight, which is 2.1 kilometres. And you can see the banner at the end of the road. It is the straightest finish I can ever recall in the Tour de France.
A long, straight 2.1 kilometre finishing line, and this was where Stuart O'Grady is looking back over his shoulder right now. He knows the main field will be charging along at 60 kilometres an hour as they come into town, and they're still being led by AG2R. The yellow, lime green jerseys of Vinnie Calderola. They're getting themselves organised right now. This is the biggest organisation they've done for the last couple of days, and that is for their sprinter. That is Roman Weinsteins at the back in the green jersey, picking his way through the cars. Robbie McEwen, he won't win today. Well, if he does, it will be unbelievable.
Well, he's still in the cars. He can't be far off the tail of the peloton. He's racing back into the group, but of course, all of his energy being thrown away to get back here. He had a teammate falling back to pick him up as well. Zabel is even further behind than that. Here we go, along the banks of the River Rhone. We've crossed to the other side now, to the side on which they will finish. 4 kilometres to go. There'll be a left turn to come, then a right turn. Then, as far as you can see, and further, will be the finishing line. The gap is just on 30 seconds for these two. The only hope now is that the peloton will get a little bit confused and look to somebody else to take up the chase, and that's a tough expect.
That's a tough expectation, but this is a big organisation right now. This is what's required to pull these riders back into the fold. The main field under 4 kilometres to go. Paolo Bettini is moving to the front there. His team have decided they want to lead him out. Let's not forget, he might be the man who can win one-day classics like Liège-Bastogne-Liège, but he can also sprint very nicely, thank you very much. And the big German Jan Ullrich placing himself. Don't forget, in the early part of his career, Jan Ullrich was a very good bunch sprinter.
Well, if Ullrich wins, that would be a turn up on the eve of the mountains. But look, they're going to make a turn very shortly here now, and then they've got a couple of chicanes, and that's it. It's a long, straight chase. And in terms of distance, the peloton we are looking at as they go under 3 to go is just 600 yards behind them.
3 kilometres to go and 25 seconds advantage for these guys. When they get to the end of this small avenue, they will take a right-hand turn, and then it's the 2.1 kilometre finishing straight. They dare not look back right now, Phil, as the time check comes to 20 seconds advantage over the main field. The sprinters are going to have their day. They will catch these guys, I would expect, right under the Flamme Rouge.
And there's another crash. There's another rider gone down. 2 riders on the side of the road. They are so desperate to reach the leaders on these bends. They are falling off. Let's have another look again. Overshot the corner. Happened in the centre of the pack near the front again. And they look okay, but they will again have disrupted the chase.
This is all because of the fatigue. This has been a tough day in the saddle here. We've had 230 kilometres of racing in temperatures soaring up to 90 degrees Fahrenheit. There is the corner. When they turn around this corner to the right, they will see, if they've got good eyesight, in the distance, the finishing banner. They are still holding on to 18 seconds advantage over the main field. These crashes might go to the advantage of the breakaway.
Well, we're almost sounds like we're wishing it will, aren't we? Well, why shouldn't we? Because if they lead to the line, they've been in the front for 200 kilometres. At the moment, they've been in the front for exactly 198 kilometres. The longest escape we have had, and they are 2 kilometres from the line. The gap is about 12 seconds. It can't be done.
12 seconds is all they've got. That correlates to around about 120 metres advantage. It's the FDJ.com team on the front, getting the organisation right now, right up there in 3rd position. You can see Bradley McGee, former, reigning champion of the world at the individual pursuit. The Italian champion is there in the red, white and green jersey. Paolo Bettini, he's looking for the win as well.
It's so hard when your Australian mates are on rival teams and they have to chase you down, but that's what's happening. McGee trying to counter now the move here by Stuart O'Grady. Our camera pan didn't take long, did it? These 2 riders have become the heroes of the day. Everybody outside of our comedy position is willing them on, but I think it cannot happen. They are just behind them now, and I think they might even get picked up at the sign 1 kilometre to go. But there is always a psychological moment when sprinters look at one another, and they only need a 2-second hesitation, but it's not going to happen.
It's not going to happen today. It's a long finishing straight. They've not quite got to the 1,000 kilometre banner area right now. Rabobank on the front, trying to sort it out for Oscar Freire, who's moved up into 4th position. These guys, Phil, only have 50 metres legs, 50 metres advantage over the main field. They're not going to do it right now because the sprinters are really picking up the pace.
Oh, Jeslan's looked over his shoulder. O'Grady has. The sweep up is coming in sight of the banner. How cruel is life as a pro bike rider as the sprinters now look to reassess, and Bettini launches the attack. And look at that. O'Grady and Jeslan try again to mix it at the front. They're not going to have their day taken away. Bettini, I think, has made the move too soon. Bradley McGee on the left of the picture here as well, as they try now to go. This comes Tor Hushoff, is trying to finish it off with a good result for O'Grady's team. Here he comes. Pataki is making the move. Win number 4, but on the right it is Bradley McGee. Win number 4, though it is. Baden Cook, sorry, is second, but he can't believe it. It wasn't his victory 1 kilometre out.
Unbelievable. Sad day for Stuart O'Grady and Jeslan, but what a move again by Alessandro Pataki. It really has been a tough day in the saddle, Phil, for these bike riders. It's one that will leave severe traces on the body for tomorrow's first incursion into the mountains. Look at this acceleration here from Alessandro Pataki. Baden Cook thought he had the wheel there, but all of a sudden this man, he likes to sprint right down the middle of the road. He looks back to see what the other guys are doing in the race. He's got enough time to cruise here at the finish line. Win number 4. What a remarkable Giro and a remarkable Tour de France for Alessandro Pataki.
Absolutely unbelievable. Baden Cook second to Alessandro Pataki. Our hearts go out to the two men who are in the lead, could see the finish and couldn't quite make it after 200 kilometres. Come back soon here on OLN. And welcome back. The Tour has arrived in Lyon with Pataki escaping from the jaws of defeat and putting it into his 4th stage victory out of his 6 possible attempts. This man is proving so fast, winning by miles over the rest of the field after they wiped out O'Grady and Jeslan in sight of the banner, and that was hard enough to take. But Pataki shook his head as he crossed the line because he really could not believe that he had won this stage. They were so close and yet so far, the other two, and he finished it off for them. He cannot do a thing wrong. He had a similar opening week in the Tour of Italy, and it's continuing now in the Tour de France. In the placings was Baden Cook, beaten again. The Australians had 1 stage win this week. He's had 1 stage win, and it looked like Fabrizio Guidi who got over the line in 3rd place, another Italian. So let's see if we can now have a look at the stage results. Brought to us by Pacific Life, and yes, it was Guidi who got 3rd. Hushoft 4th, trying to get the win after he saw his team captain O'Grady caught. Milesi 5th, obviously recovered from his crash the other day. Damian Nazon was there, not the same as Jean-Patrick, they're brothers on different teams, and Sebastian Eno up there as well. Well, what an incredible situation that was. Paul, you have to feel so unhappy for the two who are away, but in that big hustle-bustle of a sprint, O'Grady actually tried to dig in here and go with the sprint, but he couldn't have had the legs after a breakaway of 200 kilometres. Paolo Bettini looking better every day, right on the front. Cook tried to go on the far right on the wheel of Hushoft, but then the White Tornado came through on the barriers and just charged around and went so far clear, shook his head when he crossed the line. He just couldn't believe that he'd won it. It was an incredible sprint finish, but okay, he's got 4 wins. He's a bit greedy. I mean, those two really deserve the victory.
They certainly deserve the victory, and I was having my fingers crossed underneath the table there, just hoping they would survive.
Yeah,
but the speed of the main field over the final kilometres, we're looking at almost 35, 40 miles an hour in the main peloton. And Alessandro Pataki, well, he can sprint from the front or the back. He's just turning out to be incredible in this tour. 10 stage wins in the major tours so far this season. That puts him up alongside the greats.
Well, that makes it win number 16. I'm losing count now. That's by far and away his finest ever season, and is the first time he's won the big competitions in the Tour de France and in the Tour of Italy. Let's have a look then at the stage results. There it is for you. Just over 5 hours in the saddle today. Baden Cook will be very unhappy with 2nd place. Pataki also taking the lead of this race on points now with that victory, because poor old Robin McCune is at the tail of the field. Guidi there getting 3rd, Hushoft 4th, and I think, you know, with Hushoft he did try to finish it off, but as we look here across the beauty of Lyon, and looks a bit of a heat haze over the city now, because this is a very, very hot day, an absolute scorcher. Tomorrow we'll see just how good Alessandro Patacchi is likely to be when we go the other side of the mountains. Here is the arrival of Zabel. Looks like he's being brought home by Guirini here. So that's the end of his shot at any high finish of the Tour de France. He's waiting for the sprinter. Paul, why is it we're getting so many crashes this year?
Well, today the crashes I would put down to fatigue, because it's been a long, hot, hard day in the saddle, and coming into the finish it was a very nervous day for all of the men at the front end of the main field. They realise, the sprinters, that they don't have a chance to win a stage now until we get down to Marseille, and that's in a few days' time. We're going to have 3 big, hard days in the mountains. They were taking risks to say at the front, but at this stage of the Tour, especially with this heat that has come over the last couple of days, the reflexes are not quite as good as they should be.
Well, there's Zabel, a little bit of a smile from Eric saying thanks to Giuseppe Guerini for looking after me on the finish. There you can see the pile-up. There's the little area where it all happened. Touch of wheels. Oh dear, it was a rather a nasty shunt, wasn't it? And Robbie McEwen getting himself involved in it as well. No doubt McEwen and Zabel marking one another, but Robbie on the right there, grabbing his bike, just checking it out before he was away. A lot quicker, in fact, than Eric Zabel. And there's the beauty of the city of Lyon. As we look now at the sprint once again, we'll try and hold on a little bit for the prize presentations, but there's no doubt who the winner is, Alessandro Patacchi. Rejoin us live on OLM.
We say never two without.
Back as we look down on the beautiful city of Lyon, first visited by the Tour de France in 1903. Maurice Guérin won then, and it was a long wait for the second man to come in. But today, at the end of it all, the peloton themselves chased down the 2 heroes of the day, O'Grady and Geslin, and as a result, they were won by Alessandro Patacchi. Well, let's see if we can now call up the general classification brought to you by Pacific Life. No, this is the stage result, this one. 5 hours, 8 minutes today. Baden Cook in second place. He's had 1 stage win. He could have had a few more without Patacchi riding the race. Fabrizio Guidi pulled out something special there for the Bianchi squad. Thor Hushoff, the Norwegian rider in the race on Crédit Agricole. He was trying to finish off what Stuart O'Grady started, his teammate today. Didn't quite work out. And Marco Milesi crashed a couple of days ago, but he's okay now, obviously. Further down the list, a good result there for Gerrit Gloms, a winner of the Tour of Austria this year, and Luca Paolini completing the top 10. Of course, all coming in the same time. And the big name not there, 2 big names not there, was Eric Zabel, who crashed along with Robin McEwen, and Zabel came in a little bit behind the 8th ball today. Well, just look at this city now. A few more houses here than there were in July 1903. But it's still provided us with a great finish to a stage of the Tour de France. It's the 16th visit of the event here, and I have to say it's probably one of the hottest visits we've ever paid, Paul, wasn't it?
Very hot out on the open road today, and just looking at the finish here from the helicopter, you can see the 2 leaders there. What an unbelievable effort by those 2 guys, escaping after 30 kilometers. 18 miles into the race they broke clear on a stage that was almost 150 miles in length. They were caught inside the last mile of racing. It's so sad to see a breakaway get that close to the finish, having put so much energy into it, but there was nothing they can do, because over the last few kilometers we saw moments when the main field was touching 70 kilometers an hour. That's almost 45 miles an hour.
Yeah, and then when they were caught, Stuart O'Grady tried to lift the legs just that little bit more and go with the head of the peloton, but of course you can't possibly do that on the run into the line. So near and yet so far. Nearly 200 kilometers escape for the riders. That's the longest break we've had of the Tour de France so far. Let me remind you that tomorrow we do go into the high mountains of the Tour, be a different race altogether. Patacchi himself, when he crossed the line, shaking his head, he really couldn't believe he'd been given the opportunity to win again. He was happy enough to have stuck at 3, but now he's won 4 stages of the Tour de France. It's funny how years change, Paul. This man has tried for years to be a star in the big races. He's always finished second, and all of a sudden he's winning every time.
I think psychologically he's always felt not as good as Mario Cipollini. This year he beat Mario Cipollini fairly and squarely on many stages of the Giro d'Italia. He took himself a total of 6 wins there, and that may well have been the renaissance of Alessandro Patacchi, because right now he's got no worries at all about being the fastest sprinter in the world, and nobody right here at the Tour de France can challenge him at all.
Well, that's certainly the way it appears right now, because he's not just winning by a tyre width, he's winning by bike lengths. I can hear the music playing. Stand by, the crowd are applauding, and there's the reason on stage now, Alessandro Patacchi. He knows the way now from the back of that podium onto those 3 steps, doesn't he? He's met the girls before, and there's the trophy of Lyon, the first of the cities to be visited so far this year. We'll visit them all in the end. That was on the very first Tour de France route in 1903. And the sun shines on the Italian. The Italians did well in the early Tours de France, by the way, but not in the first one.
Well, they didn't do too well in the Tour de France a couple of years ago when they got no stage victories at all. And in fact, last year they only had 1 win, but that was one of this young man's teammates, Dario Frigo. But right now they're on the road to looking at a record over the last couple of years. This man has given them 4 stage wins so far. But right now he's going to have a very difficult day over the next 3 stages, because we go into the big mountain passes of the Alps, and he's reputedly not one of the greatest climbers in the world.
No, as we may find out. Let's have a look at where the climbers might be. This is the Pacific Life General Classification. Victor Hugo Peña gets to start a 3rd day in yellow. Lance Armstrong locked in at 1 second. There's no change at all here in the overall. All of the US postal riders safely in the pack, which always receives the same time as the winner when they're together like this, so there'll be no changes in the gaps. The 20-second bonus for winning the stage won't affect the overall, because Patacchi already has lost time on the days he wasn't winning the stages. Further down, Heras now poised to ride alongside Armstrong in the mountains. He's got all his men around him. Bolocki must attack and see if he can remove that 33 seconds deficit. Jörg Jatsk, he'll fall away now. He's a teammate of Bolocki and will be like the rest are for US Postal. Onto the podium, Paul, Victor Hugo Peña, 29 years and 1 day old now, and still in yellow, so he's not too old, you see.
No, what a great birthday present for him yesterday. It's going to be a tough day for him tomorrow, because he needs to stay up along Lance Armstrong to do the work as a team domestique. But the fact that there's a downhill finish down into Morzine could mean that Victor Hugo Peña could stay in contact with his team leader and keep the jersey for 1 more day. But in the back of his mind, he knows that one day he has to hand it over to the man who is the true leader of the team. But this has been a wonderful experience for this Colombian rider. The first time a Colombian ever rode the Tour de France was back in 1975, and that was Cochise Rodriguez, a great individual pursuiter. But I tell you what, this man has been the first yellow jersey.
Indeed. So, as we look down on the city of Lyon, don't go away. We'll finish off the podiums for you. We'll also hear from a new expert on the block, Kirsten Gunn, and the old man, Bob Roll. We'll join you again in just a few minutes right here live on OLN. Don't go too far away. And welcome back to the Outdoor Life Network. We look down on the city of Lyon here, and I have to say we just witnessed one of the great sprints after they wiped out the 2 leaders who had led for most of the day. The presentations are continuing. And look at that, Paul. A change now. Robin McEwen has lost a lot of points here, not scoring at all in that finishing sprint. Patacchi now in green.
Both he and Eric Zabel lost an awful lot of points to this man, who I think rightly leads the points competition, because after all, he's won 4 out of the 5 sprints, so you can't dispute the fact that he is the king of the sprints in the Tour de France this year.
Absolutely. 4 stage wins, and McEwen had 2 last year, and he won the green jersey in Paris. If he does ride the distance, Patacchi, then McEwen is going to be extremely worried, of course, as indeed is Eric Zabel.
He'll have a very hard time beating him. Look at that, he's already got himself a 26-point advantage over Baden Cook. McEwen slipping down a lot there, and Eric Zabel also down into 5th place. But if you look at that list of names, there are an awful lot of good sprinters here at the Tour de France this year.
Yes, and we'll be treated to many more, but not tomorrow, of course, because it's a rather tough day in the Alps tomorrow. The riders will be glad to see their chalets at Morzine, I'm sure of that. Over to the King of the Mountains competition. He loaned it to Frédéric Finot for 1 day. He took it back today, and this is Christophe Mongin.
Well, not to be too negative, but I have a feeling Christophe Mongin might lose that competition lead tomorrow, because we've got some very big mountains out on the course, and of course the most difficult one coming towards the end, Col de la Ramaz, before the riders charge down into the finish in the town of Morzine.
But it keeps the Frenchmen at least in front of their public here on the Centennial Tour, and that's most important, because since they made the Tour de France a worldwide event, of course, they haven't won it since Bernard Hinault, the man in the white shirt scratching his ear. He won it back in 1985.
And he won it 5 times as well. He's a tough character.
His 5th.
And he still is a tough man, Bernard Hinault, and doesn't mince his words when he doesn't agree with something.
And he's never changed. He was the same on the bike, and he was the same off the bike. Now there's still a white jersey to be presented. This is the one for the highest young rider of the Tour in the overall position, but I'm not sure we're going to get to see that. So, well, I have to say that was a great day of racing, and I have to say for probably the third time this week, Paul, I'm extremely sorry that the breakaways have been wiped out, but it's uncanny how the peloton, day in, day out, time that catch.
Well, you know, it is quite amazing, but to put it all into perspective, the main field can wipe out a 6-mile advantage over the last hour of racing, because the main field can ride at 50 kilometers an hour, while the leaders can only ride at 40, and that's why it's so dramatic to have a big advantage for a breakaway in the last few kilometers of racing. But I really felt sorry for Stuart O'Grady, because he was so close to the victory there.
Terribly close. What can you say? Tomorrow he's going to pay for 200 kilometres in the lead, because it's a hard ride. We go right round the edge of Switzerland and up into the mountains of the Alps, which overlook Switzerland and France and Italy. It's a toughie. Now, I wonder if we can continue. Maybe we'll just get a glimpse, perhaps, of the white jersey before we have to leave you. You still look down at the rooftops here of Lyon, and the 16th time we've come into the place here. Just to tell you who was the leader, Vladimir Karpic was the leader, and I suspect he should have done enough to have kept his lead in this competition. Let's have a look. AG2R, it is the Ibanez. I get these two jerseys so confused, but we're all right. Vladimir Karpic, the second youngest rider in the race, is now the leader of, still the leader of the young rider competition. And I wonder if he get his hair cut before the Tour's over. Paul, what do you reckon?
Well, I doubt it. He won't really have very much time to do it, but I think the incredible thing about this young rider competition, Phil, is that 3 of the riders in the top 3 are all Russians, because he leads his compatriots, Denis Menshov and Evgeny Petrov.
Yes, the Russians are coming back into the big time of pro cycling these days. We'll just take one more break, then we'll have a look at where we go tomorrow. And if you have the nervous disposition, don't listen too hard. We'll see you in a moment on the Outdoor Life Network. And welcome back to Lyon. Here is another signature of Victor Hugo Peña on the yellow jersey. And welcome back, as we're looking now again at the city of Lyon. It's witnessed today the 4th stage win out of a possible 6th for Alessandro Petacchi. And this is the man now who's become the new sprinter on the block in the Tour de France, and he's Italian. We haven't had a man sprint as fast as him since Mario Cipollini used to pay us a visit on the Tour de France, right? Absolutely, and I think the incredible thing about this man is he's got himself 10 stage wins so far this year, Phil, in the big major stage races. 6 wins at the Tour of Italy, dominant fashion, all of those, and now 4 stage wins at the Tour de France. He'll have a hard time over the next few days. The reason I think he was eliminated in the Giro d'Italia with the points jersey on his back was because he had that very dramatic crash in the time trial. He has said that he's a little bit tired over the last couple of days because this has been a very hot start to the Tour de France. Well, I'd agree with you there, Paul. You want to try working in the studio here, because believe me, it is an absolute scorcher today. The crowd have been treated out to a great race. We feel very sorry for the Australian Stuart O'Grady and for the young 23-year-old Frenchman Anthony Geslin, because those 2 rides were caught when they could almost reach out and touch the banner after a 200-kilometre escape. Still, the Tour goes on as it always does. There's still 2 more weeks and a single day to go in this year's Tour de France, and lots of stories to report. But tomorrow we enter the mountains. Let's have a look at the map first of all. As I said, this is not for the nervous, because we are now going into the high mountains for the first time of the Alps. Even the top riders do not know how their legs will respond after a week. It's another long stage, 230 kilometres again, which equals the stage of today. The 2 longest stages of the race are back-to-back, Paul. But this one is really a little bit more special. The riders start off with a nice little gentle climb, the Col de Port, before heading down into the valley, meandering not too far away from Geneva, and then it's going to be seriousness all towards the end. The Côte des Monts des Princes, which is not really all that much at 700 meters of altitude, Côte de Creuset, but then everybody is scared about this final climb of the day. The one that they're all talking about as being exceptionally difficult, the Col de la Ramaz. 1,600 meters, that's almost 5,500 feet of climbing, and then the drop down into Morzine-Avoriaz. And if you have a look at it from the side there, Phil, it really does not look like an awful lot of fun. Because I have to say, that descent down to the finish line in Morzine is a very tricky one too, and there'll be a lot of riders there left behind on the climb, will take serious risks to try and keep themselves in contention. It's just about 12-13 miles over, once you're at 22 kilometres over the top of the Ramires, right down to the bottom. We see some great racing into Morzine over the year because of the twisting descents, very narrow roads, very tortuous, and desperate riders, of course, because they're trying to make up time lost on the climbs.
Funny thing, Morzine is a place I've never really enjoyed because, in fact, I raced the Tour de France 7 times. The 5 times that I got to the finish were fine, but the 2 times I didn't get there were when I was finishing in Morzine. Not good fun. And, in fact, don't forget Lance Armstrong had one of his worst days in the Tour de France early on the Jouplan, and that stage was into Morzine too.
The Col de Jouplan is a brute, but we're not going over that tomorrow, but the Ramirez is a real good replacement. Right, that's it, everybody, from Paul and from me. We can now go and have a little chat with Kirsten Gum and Bob Roll.
All right, thank you, Phil and Paul. Boy, what an exciting end to stage 6. We knew it was going to be, a sprint for the finish again. I don't know where you want to start. I kind of want to start with, let's talk about, we have Stewart and Jeslyn out in front the entire day. I know it's their job to be out there. It still makes me feel bad that they get caught right at the end.
Oh, that was as close as it ever gets in bike racing, to be caught so close to the finish line within the last kilometer. But the sprinters can calculate their effort based on the riders up in front of them. And a rider like Alessandro Patacchi, we'll take a look at that. Zabel and Zabel, and McEwen in the green jersey going down here. That gave O'Grady and Jeslyn a little bit better chance to stay away to the finish, because those teams put the brakes on right there, stop chasing, because they don't need to. They need to get their riders back into the front of the bike race if they're going to have a chance to win. Zabel, the worst off with that. A lot of cuts and scrapes. He'll be bruised up and sore tomorrow. That was very bad luck for him. And when a team loses their sprinters, the impetus goes out of the chase. So O'Grady and Jeslyn, a little bit better chance. But the sprinters, they can look up and they can calculate their effort based on the riders in front of them. And Patacchi probably could have caught them even if it was just a few meters from the line. He could have gone from 500 meters out. It's an unbelievable sprint. He had plenty of time to put his arms up, comb his hair,
yes,
have a drink
right.
of water. He coasted the last 100 meters, and he was still in the lead of the bike race at the end. An unbelievable show of power by Alessandro Patacchi.
He was kind of like, I'm here again. I found my home once again. Right there at the end, we saw Bradley McGee, and I thought he was leading out Baden Cook, but then they came up either side. What happened there?
I think that they got a little bit thrown off on their game, and there's also riders coming at them from all over the place. And as our 2 breakaway riders came down and were caught, here you can see Bettini leading out Paolini, and then it looks like Cook takes the wrong line. A little bit of bad communication there. He should have gone to the other side to stay on McGee's wheel, but he took the line of Tor Hushov. But look at Patacchi up against the fence. Now he's gone all the way past him. This is like 200 meters to go, and he opens up the gap right there. It's Patacchi, then a wall of the pretenders as Patacchi goes straight to the line there. Look at the gap he has.
Yeah.
It's been a very long time since the heyday of Mario Cipollini when we've seen a sprinter like this be able to stop so far from the finish and say, yes, please, bask in my glory. That I am showing the people now all the way. No problem for Patacchi at all.
I got to say, you are the master, of course, Bob Roll predicting Patacchi. That was a pretty easy one. Unfortunately, I went with McEwen, I believe is what I said earlier on, and who knew there was going to be a crash? Bad luck for McEwen and Zabel. They have not had a good tour so far.
They haven't had great luck so far, but they're the type of riders that will never give up. They will never surrender. They will continue pursuing their dream of stage wins. And McEwen, I think maybe he was a little bit tied up in that green jersey competition. He's freed from that now, and he can more emphatically go for stage wins, and he's going to need every ounce of power that he has to compete against Alessandro Patacchi, who's at the height of his career, the absolute zeitgeist of his powers. Fabulous sprinting, though. What a display, and a very exciting stage.
Earlier in the pre-race show, Phil Liggett said, hey, Patacchi is not going to make it through the mountains. What do you think? What's your prediction as we head into the mountains tomorrow?
I think that Patacchi was really upset that he couldn't finish the Giro d'Italia this year. He was involved in a crash, had to drop out a few days later, missed a time limit actually in the mountains. He'll be very motivated to get through. I think he has some very strong chances to win more stages.
Wow, well, stage 6 is in the bag as we head to the mountains. Now, don't forget, live coverage of the 2003 Tour de France here on OLN. It begins at 9 a.m. tomorrow. Then you can join us again for our primetime coverage from 8 to 11:30. It starts with Bob Roll and I